Yo, what's up, guys? It's Alex here again with another episode of the Lenko Show. And today we are on episode number 72. I'm going to be sitting down and speaking with Jamie Clough, someone who I work closely with in the gym. We spent a lot of time training in the same facility, working with clients in the same facility. And I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for quite a while now, really, because she's a mint trainer, loads of qualifications, knows what she's doing, works incredibly hard herself, trains incredibly well, and no doubt has loads of knowledge, loads of information, and loads of useful stuff to pass on to the rest of us. And recently, Jamie has run an ultra marathon, which is no mean feat. So we are going to be digging into her preparations for that, training leading into it, what it's like actually going through it, advice for anyone that wants to do one, and also as a female in sport, what it's like from a female perspective in terms of growing up, competing, having to deal with stigmas and various other things that can inevitably get in the way sometimes, especially if other people are stuck in their ways, shall we say. So without further ado, ladies and gents, let's get on to the show. And by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, you can see the dog just chilling just over my shoulder there. So there's every chance that he might kick off at some point during this recording. We shall see. Anyway, ladies and gents, enjoy the show. Let's go. Jamie, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Appreciate you giving up your time.
No worries.
Going?
Yeah. Well, today's actually been a good start to the day. We've had an in-body scanner put in the gym. So we've been having a good chat about body fat and muscle mass and all that sort of stuff. So my brain's firing on all cylinders this morning.
Oh, sick. Have you used it yet?
Yeah. So never used one before. Never had body fat measurements, lean mass measurements done before. So it's quite cool to see. But we're also trying to figure out how it works. How does it know? So yeah.
So as I explained in the introduction, me and you work in the same gym, train in the same gym for a long time. You've been a coach there. I have to give a mention to the gym. CrossFit 3D, Trafford Park, home of the Manchester Titans, current national champions, by the way. I didn't plug that one earlier either. Yeah, I'm having a stinker. So just introduce yourself a little bit, talk us through like how long you've been PTing for and career and background, sport, competing, and then we'll get into why you decided to run an incredibly long distance.
Well, yeah, to sum it up, I did an office job for a while after uni, hated it, wanted to do something more active. So I trained as a Pilates teacher originally. Along that sort of time, I was struggling with a lot of stuff in my personal life. I guess I wasn't doing a lot of physical activity. So that was the catalyst for me to start doing more. And then left the office job, started doing Pilates full time. And then basically as the years went on, I realized how much there is to learn within the industry. Pilates only covers a certain section of that. So it was the few months before, dare I mention it, lockdown happened. I was like, right, I'll start training as a personal trainer as well. Then I can get more knowledge for my clients that I'm working with. Around that time, I also did my CrossFit level 1 because I've loved CrossFit since I started it. I think I've been a member at this gym now for coming up to 6 years, I think. Been coaching.
I was going to say, because you were member first, then started to go down your PT qualification route, and then started full-time coaching in the gym as well, didn't you?
They all kind of came in together. So CrossFit level 1, doing my PT course, then got offered a job here, more of a part-time position, which I built up, but got a lot of friends here, made some of my, friends for life here at this gym. So it's not just like a place of work for me. It's all encompassing. And I guess my life really changed coming here as well. Had lots of changes in my personal life. And as the years have gone on, I guess I've just been trying to obviously build up my knowledge base for the personal training, Pilates, athleticism, sports, CrossFit stuff all coming in together. And then this year has been the year of running. So if we're going to talk about a theme for each year, basically last year in September, got advertised on my Instagram about this ultra run. And this little thing went off in my head. I was like, you know what? I've never done anything like that before. That would be something that I could then, I don't know, be one of those things when I'm old and I can say, hey, kids, I did this kind of thing. So I don't know if you know much. You probably hear it a lot about the CrossFitters hating running. You might hear that a lot from our members. And it's always been something that I never felt I could get a grip on. So I was like, you know what, this is going to throw me in at the deep end. And it's going to force me to increase my running and increase my training in that area that I didn't feel very good at. So one of my friends encouraged me to do the Paris Marathon with her, which was in April this year, as part of the training up for the ultra marathon. So that was like the first phase. But basically, it's not just about that sort of run for me. It was like, what can I learn from this? Obviously taken a break from doing actual education. I did my CrossFit level 2 last year and kind of felt that was enough for me to be chomping at for now. So going into the actual learning about a kind of sport or an activity within my own body is kind of, I guess that's been my journey this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to approach it, because I know that, like, I've done loads and I've done plenty of qualifications, probably too many, way more than I needed to be doing. Yeah. And literally one of the best ways to learn anything is to just actually go and do it. And exactly. sometimes that involves hiring a coach to help you through things. Like, you probably learn more than that because you're picking up all the knowledge that they're piling into you, and then your actual knowledge of the training and the overall experience of participating in it yourself. So it's basically, it's a shortcut qualification, isn't it? So did you learn anything from all your running?
I've learned a lot about myself. I know that sounds like eat, pray, love kind of rubbish, but I think when you force yourself to do something that you're not very good at or that you've not done a lot of before, you really learn about what you want to do in life. You know, yeah, you don't want to go out and do the 25k run around town. You know, if it's just on tarmac, it's really boring. So when I was training in the first part of the year, specifically for the marathon, I was kind of like, yeah, this is a slog. But then when I'd go out and do runs that were in somewhere more interesting, like a trail run, or I live in Wilmslow, so just running up through Bollingwood was far more interesting than running on the road. So I've kind of figured that about myself, that it's not really about being super fast at running. It was about going out and enjoying an experience, which is why I wanted to do the ultra in the first place, I get, because the lap is the lap of Lake Windermere. For those of you that don't know it, you don't see the lake that much because you're going up and around into all the peaks and troughs around it. But I was like, I love the Lake District. And if I'm going to run that far, I want to do it somewhere that it's interesting and challenging. And obviously, when you run on a road, it's a constant. You can keep an eye on your pace. You can keep an eye on your heart rate. The training is kind of a lateral. What do you need? You need to be able to run. Whereas when you're doing an ultra that's like a proper trail run, you need to be able to carry a heavy backpack on you the whole time. You need strong legs, definitely. You also need, I would argue, a strong upper body to carry all that stuff you've got to have with you. So the way that I was thinking about it was such an education for myself. I know a lot of people, when they just run, they just go out and run. They don't think about anything. They maybe let go, you know, it's like a way of chilling out for them, which was kind of what it was like for me on the actual day. But on the run up to that, I was thinking about all these other elements that I needed to incorporate. You know, how does CrossFit or cross training apply to someone who wants to be able to do an ultra run or even any running in general? So yeah, I don't know. It's been a very interesting year, lots of peaks and troughs, but I can very happily say, touch wood, with everything that I've done, I've not had any major injuries that have had to make me quit doing any sport or running. Just had niggles, which we can talk about niggles in a bit. Yeah.
Well, I think you've hit on a pretty important point there. So like one of the big factors that you often hear from people like with running is that they find it boring.
Yeah.
And sometimes that laborious factor of like, especially if you're doing the same route over and over, and then it's raining, and then you've got a million and one other things to do. It's so much easier to just not go out, not hit the road, and just kind of sit on your sofa and have your dinner and be done with it for the evening. Same thing first thing in the morning, rain on the window, you think, oh God, it's just easy to just lie in bed and wait till it's time to go to work.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to that difference of location, difference of route, difference of pacing, like just that, even the thoughts that you're going to be thinking along the way and seeing different things, that novelty factor when it comes to running is absolutely huge. It's like if you did the exact same gym workout every single time, it would be so boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, we were discussing it the other day, someone who does CrossFit is probably more likely to get bored doing the same routine, because the whole thing about CrossFit is it's whatever is in, you know, one of those lottery machine things. Literally, whatever's in that could come out in any random order at any random time. So many people have come up with all these insane workouts. You don't do the same thing every day. You never do the same thing maybe twice in a month. You might do some of the same movements, but they always come up in different numbers, different ratios. So for me, I was having quite a few discussions with James Jousey, who is a very well-known like CrossFit coach. He coaches CrossFit athletes, but he also coaches runners, golfers, you know, people within a specific sport modality. And we were talking about CrossFit, the brand, like, how do you apply that to someone who does need to get in the mileage? You know, you can't always be giving them a workout where they've got 400 meters with wall balls, 400 meters with thrusters, 400 meters with something else. You actually need to get a lot of distance in, a lot of volume. So coming from that background and then having to say to myself, yeah, you can't do this 15-minute WOD today. You have to be out there for 2 to 4 hours running. That is such a mental barrier to overcome for anyone, but especially people who are used to CrossFit. You know, I do like a lot of routine in my training. I know you do. I see you doing some of the same things, similar days of the week, bit of bench, pulling, hip work that you need to do for your kicking and stuff like that. And I needed to do that, but also try and have fun at the same time. And that is something that people find difficult to do. There were some days where I would be out on my long runs. I'd say to myself, I'm going to get up at 8 and go on the run right away. Then I'll be done in the morning. Then I'll be back. That did not happen. Probably on 95% of my big run days, it would end up be me having a lie-in, having a breakfast, and then worrying about the run and going, oh my God, I've got to do 3 hours today. I've got to do 3.5 hours. How am I going to get through this? And in the end, once you actually get out to do it, you've done your little warm up, you're getting into it. 7K in, I got that hit of dopamine, endorphins. I was like, yeah, I'm running. This is great. So every time I would tell myself, once you get going, you'll really enjoy it. But it's that bit before where your brain's telling you, oh, it's going to be terrible, you know? And I've ran through literal thunderstorms because I've chosen my timing very poorly. And then running across an open field, you can see lightning going off above your head, and you're like, oh my God, I'm actually going to die on this run today. So that is a real test of grit. I like using the word grit, you know, being able to get that stuff done no matter what the circumstance. Because let's face it, what I was training to do is in the Lake District. You try to tell me that the weather is constant in the Lake District? No, it isn't. It can go at any moment. So that was fun, because here, again, to bring it back to my home of the gym, if we have a really rainy day and a run has been programmed, I will probably have to persuade 50 to 70% of the people in the class to please still run, even though it's raining. Yes, there are some safety issues to consider with.
No, there aren't. It's just running. It's running in the wet. There's no real safety issues. The only safety issues there are the fake ones that people make up and threaten to sue you for. There's no safety issues. No one's going to drown. It's not raining that hard. They'll be fine.
They come up, don't they? Like, you know, if you've got a training day and it's pissing it down, you've got to do it anyway. You can't not do it because of the weather. So it seems like a really small thing, maybe to someone who has been a professional athlete for quite a while, but, you know, having to tell yourself you've got to do it anyway. Maybe even if you're knackered, you've still got to do it. Like, train legs and then go and run, because you're never going to be doing 75 kilometers on fresh legs. They're going to be ruined.
Well, so, even if let's say if you could, like we're talking about, essentially that was the distance of your run, wasn't it? 75 kilometers, there or thereabouts, probably maybe a little bit over, but minimum 75K. You think, right, well, how can I simulate what it might feel like to run 75K? Whether it's the mental fatigue, the physical stress, the actual feeling in your legs and that heaviness that you get after that kind of distance, unless you've actually done it before, there's no way that you can experience what it's like to run 75K. So what's the thought process behind, right, can I take myself to a place that is going to suck and then make it 10 times worse? I.e., can I train legs and obliterate them and then go out on a long run? Like, to simulate that heavy leg, like the desire and the mentality of like, can I not just go and sit in that pub over there and just, you know, put my feet up for a little bit kind of thing? Because I think, like, ultimately, the deciding factor as to whether you finish the distance or not isn't necessarily your fitness. It's your actual mental state and the way that you're able to interpret what your body's feeling, how you're feeling, and then making a decision. Do I carry on? Do I stop? Was there anything that you did in your training to kind of simulate that, right, the legs are fucked, go work, let's do it?
Yeah. So it's something that I hear a lot. People go, oh, I can't do this because my legs are sore. Can't do this because my arms are sore. And I work kind of in the opposite way. I've seen people before who rest a long time until their body feels perfectly immaculate again before they train. Whereas I have got the best results continuing to train when I feel like trash, basically. Now, I'm not talking about keeping your heart rate up at zone 5 when you feel like you're on death's door. I'm going to say heart rate training is probably a slightly different category to the kind of strength training and endurance training. So what I was really interested in was, okay, cool, I've got heavy back squats to do today. I'm going to do that first before I go on my 6K training run today. Some people would say, do the run first, because then your legs are fresh for the run. And I'm like, but I'm not training for speed today. I'm training my legs to get that volume in. So I went through a bit of a cycle of literally doing 4 to 5 sets of 12 reps of back squats, RPE 8 or 9, absolutely ruining them. Legs shaking like a shitting dog is the term that I would use specifically for that. And then carb up, fuel up, have some protein, maybe chill out a little bit before. Do your long run, which for most people 6K is considered a long run. And then try and recover as hard as possible, but then still train the next day. In my training cycle, I would have the back squat, long run Monday. Tuesday would be sprints or intervals, which at first your brain tells you, oh, but I did lots of squats yesterday. My legs aren't going to be able to sprint. That is rubbish. So it's been interesting for me because obviously the different body systems, they work in different ways. So you can still do your heavy stuff the day before, probably still going to have a lot left in that anaerobic tank for you to do the sprints the next day. So some days I've sort of gone, oh my God, my legs are really sore. I'm like, okay, do it anyway, because there's not going to be that chance for recovery on 75K. You are going to feel sore, you are going to feel tired, and you have to keep on going. So doing sprints is like the worst thing in running that you can do, really. You feel gross because that whole anaerobic system just makes you feel a bit sick when you're really pushing yourself to the limits. And I'm glad that I did that, because on the race day, I didn't actually get to that point of feeling really sick from that anaerobic stuff, because I didn't really do any on the day. It was much more of a steady slog, just keep going. And that is what you need to do throughout the week. Just keep training. Your legs are a bit tired, because I don't know if you've ever gone through a cycle like this before, but the really weird thing is your body starts to recover quicker. If you've done your heavy squats, 2 days later, I was doing heavy trap bar deadlifts. We're talking 90% of my 1 rep max for cluster reps. If you guys don't know what that means, for me, it was do a rep, wait 15 seconds, do another rep for as many reps as you could, and then recover and repeat like 3 to 4 times. Next day would be an easy run, which just means easy in terms of heart rate. The day after that, I'd be doing front squats, heavy lunges, and then maybe something with like a weighted pack on. So yeah, weight vest lunges, weight vest push-ups, still upper body stuff, because that's really important to keep that strong as well for your running. But you've just got to load as much as you can. And then, yes, I did have a rest day, normally be Saturday, but I'd still go for a walk. You can still walk when you're recovering. You don't need to literally couch potato yourself. And then long run on Sundays. So that would be 16 to 25K.
So it's interesting. So you've essentially taken an overview of the week and gone, right, from Monday, kind of like gradual beat down. Then Saturday, recover, but still be active. So active recovery, like obviously walking is ideal, because it is literally the only exercise that reduces stress levels. So if you want to recover, go for a fucking walk. If you want to go and freshen your head, mentality, just get the legs moving, go for a walk. So, and then you've gone, right, okay, now Sunday, this is where the big effort comes in, and I'm going to gradually desensitize myself to being able to do a longer run. And you work on that. And then from there, that cycle starts again. So it's kind of, and then when you're talking about adaptation and recovering faster through the week, obviously with the exercises you're doing, if you've got at least some consistency with your program and the movements that you're performing, then you become more efficient at those activities as well. You become stronger. You become more, like, should we say, more resilient to the damage that would be caused by those activities as well. So ultimately, performance over a progressive period of time actually improves. The wear and tear on the body gradually reduces to the point where you can actually handle and tolerate the loads that you're talking about. So you can then just go out and just kind of waltz around the course that's 75 kilometers long.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who would consider themselves runners, that is their main modality, is it, they run. And they might do that every day, maybe. Obviously, for me, coming from this CrossFit and strength training background to do more running, I was like, well, all of that stuff I still need to keep in, because what I didn't factor in at the beginning of the year with my training was the load on my joints and my tendons. Now, I did a half marathon run on a whim over the Christmas period just to try and get something under my belt. And then my fitness level was excellent. I'm not saying this in a bragging way. I'm saying this in, I have worked on my engine, what we call here, my cardiovascular ability, through CrossFit for a number of years. So I did that run. My heart rate was, it wasn't through the roof the whole time. I was in the aerobic zone for 50% of that time. And I felt pretty good, really chill. But then a few days after, I was like, my knees are absolutely fucked. And my feet, it felt like all the tendons and ligaments in my feet weren't in the right place anymore. So I was like, okay, there is some element of this that I need to tweak so that I'm not going to be impacting anymore on my joints. So the obviously constant repetition of your whole body mass hitting on the floor, that was the only element that I hadn't factored in on suddenly increasing my running volume from 5 lots of 400 meters to 23K. It's a massive jump. So I did have a few, I'm not going to say injuries, they were definitely niggles, because in order for you to be injured, there has to be some obvious tear or breakage or strain, whether it's your muscles or your bones or your joints. I have none of that. I can quite happily say I've not sustained any of that at all throughout any of this training period. But what I did get was that really horrible jelly-like feeling in my knees, achy joints, feeling my hips quite a bit, because obviously women have a wider hip to waist ratio, which makes us more susceptible to ACL tears. So if you've got a weak foundation and you're constantly impacting those joints, knees bending in every time, hips taking a lot of that load, then that is probably what's going to cause you the injuries. And I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So as soon as I had any little niggle come up, I'd be going to those people in my circle saying, can we look at my knees? Can we look at my hips? And most of the time it would just come down to, you're doing too much impact. So I had to step it back a bit and then build it up again. That was probably the only issue I had at the start of the year. But I'm going to be that complete arsehole who, there's that general rule, you don't need to do more than 75% of the distance in training for a marathon.
Yeah.
The furthest I had ran prior to the marathon, so marathons, I work in kilometers. So what, that's 42 kilometers.
Yeah.
The furthest I had ran was 24 kilometers. So it is just over half, but not by that much. I should have done at some point a 30 to 31 kilometer run, which I didn't do because life just meant that I couldn't fit that in at that particular time that it came up. And I didn't say to myself, oh, fuck it, all the training's gone in the bin. I've ruined it. I said, right, I can fit in 24K. That's what I've got time left today. And I did that. And then I just kept adding in 5K, 10K, 5K, 10K every other day for the last month. And yes, I did run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday up to the marathon at the start of the year, which was on Saturday. Most people would not do that. They'd have a proper taper. But knowing my body, my joints, I needed to keep running to remind my body this is what we need to do on the day. And I did a lot of strength training that week. I was doing deadlifts on the Thursday before I left, and everyone in the gym's going, "You absolute crazy fucker. Why are you deadlifting? You've got to run a marathon in a few days." I was like, yeah, but I still want my muscles to work and know what they're doing. I don't know what your thoughts are personally on rest and recovery, but that means something different to everybody. For me, if I take a week off and then have to do a big run, my body is absolutely buggered. Whereas if I were to run 5 to 10K every single day up to the event, which is a big run, my body feels great because I've still been keeping all my muscles active. I've been focusing on nutrition and sleep and recovery in the meantime. I don't need a break because I'm training for a massive thing. Why would I need a break? I need to remind my body I've got to do the volume.
Yeah, I think this is the bit where sometimes people can get carried away with recovery or lack of recovery. You need to first and foremost understand your body as an athlete and spend time working on that. And the longer you do it, the more time you spend doing it, and then going out, testing the waters, and ultimately sometimes getting it wrong. Like you start to learn where your capabilities lie. And I mean, it's the old thing of, how do you know if you've gone too far? Well, you go too far. Like, when you've pushed it too hard. And you just work to that remit. So I know for myself with my own training, I'll know how I feel when I get in an evening after a long day. If I've trained sometimes 2 or 3 times through the day, just doing even little bits of sessions, little bits of training, and then you do the best you can with recovery, whether it's cold baths, shower, massage, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously you go to bed, you get good quality sleep or not. Obviously we've got things that we can use to track that now.
Yeah.
So I use my Garmin watch for that. And if you wake up in the morning, it's saying that you've had a really crap sleep and you feel like trash, you should probably have a bit of an easier day. It doesn't mean you don't do anything, but that's where I would then adapt my training and go, right, okay, well, do I want to get like some moderate volume, or do I want to get some high intensity, like heavy work with very few reps? Like that would be a sufficient way to go about it.
Yeah.
But you could even do a slightly like 20 to 40 minute, generally zone 2 aerobic based workout that's going to leave you feeling fairly sweaty, but pretty good, as opposed to going, oh, I feel like shit, I'm going to go and do another 20-mile run. And it's like, no, you're a fucking idiot because you're not training anymore. You're actually going to weaken yourself and ruin yourself long term. Whereas I think there's a difference between that and what you described with your training, where you're chipping away at your resources throughout the week, and then you're having that recovery. So you're like taking your, should we say, overall fuel tank and gradually depleting it. And obviously you're still recovering through the week, but you're having an actual recovery day before you then go and exert yourself again. So you're actually, over the long term, you're actually adapting and getting faster, getting stronger, getting more resilient and more capable of running.
Exactly. I think the way my brain works, some people would probably find it really fascinating and odd, because in my head is like a week calendar.
Jamie, you do CrossFit. Everybody knows that CrossFit. I've written down here as well, like CrossFit was literally designed for people with the ADHD. You know, when you were saying before, like no 2 workouts are really the same. Like you won't do the same sort of thing like twice in a month or maybe even a year. CrossFit was designed for people with ADHD. So
I don't know which category I would fall into. Someone would probably tell me I've got a little bit of ADHD mixed with a little bit of OCD or something, because I like to have certain things on certain days. And it's not because if I don't do that, I will cry. You know, I'm not going to have a breakdown, but it's because then I know I've got that element of training in on that day. That always comes on that day. And that's the bit that CrossFit does leave behind, which obviously the way that they are planning their training is for most of these athletes to have that thought taken away from that training process. They come in, the workout is designed for them, they go and do it. Great. They've done the workout. They come in every day. Let's be fair. most of our members come in every day and do something. But then they've got that whole week of training, the thought's been taken away, and they've added a little bit to that notch of back squat training, push press training, pull up training, a little bit at a time. For me, because I work in this environment, and again, I need some thought taken away from myself. Otherwise, my brain would just explode thinking about all these different kinds of workouts that we have in the week. I have to remember a new workout every single day and be able to describe it in detail to everyone that comes in, which might be 80 to 100 people over the course of a day. And not a lot of them know what any of the exercises are yet. That's exhausting. So for me to say, right, Monday is squat day, Wednesday is bench press day, Friday is deadlift day, that helps me. Then I know I've got those elements in. And then I can fit in the runs around that as and when I've kind of got the time, if that makes sense, because that run doesn't require a lot of prep necessarily. Sometimes it didn't go to plan, that's fine. I just put it on another day and try and get it in as and when I can. But for the most part, like, I can be quite bad with I do know how to recover, but recovery for me might also be, I've got housework to do, I've got a food shop to do, I've got food prep to do, I've ran out of sports bras, I need to put all them in the wash, get them dried, get them done. And some of those things might come up all of a sudden, like, oh crap, I need to get the bed sheets out of the washing machine, put them in the dryer, So when I'm here at the gym, it's great because I don't think about any of those things. They all go out of my head. But as soon as I get home, I'm like, right, I've got a million and one things to do, and my training, and eat enough food. Eating is like a full-time job in itself, especially for a female athlete. That's something that has taken me a long time to learn, but now I'm trying to make sure that is known to all of the female athletes here, is how important nutrition is, and sleep. Oh God, I could talk endlessly about how important sleep is and have arguments, especially with my other half, about how much sleep I need.
Honestly, sleep is your number one weapon when it comes to recovery. You can eat what you want all the time, like do whatever you want. You can get in all the ice baths you like. Your number one recovery method is always going to be sleep. So if you're not on top of that, you have got zero. You're losing gains.
Yeah.
You're literally losing gains.
Yeah, like if your body is like a tank, and at the start of the day, you should be starting with a full tank ready to go. As your day goes on, it gets depleted. You keep chucking food in there, that's fine. But you can only refill it once you've gotten adequate sleep. That's when you're repairing the muscle fibers that you've torn throughout the day doing whatever it is. That's when your brain is processing everything that you've taken in from the day. Like if you ever have dreams about running or dreams about weightlifting, I've had dreams about doing snatches and clean and jerk before because I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on in my head. But there's so many things that happen to your body during sleep that you don't do during the day. You don't even think about it because your body just naturally does it. But if you're only having 5 hours sleep, if you've been to the gym for 5 hours that day, how do you expect 5 hours of sleep to recover you from that? And you've also done a full working day on top of that, probably. Because I know people that are like that. They'll come in the morning, 6 a.m. class, then they'll do accessories, then they'll go to work, then they'll come back, and then they'll do weightlifting and then high rocks back to back. They've done all of that.
Double classes back to back. Just go home. Honestly, your efforts are just being wasted. Yeah. Don't do double classes back to back. Do one, and then maybe a little bit of accessory work, but then just get the fuck out. Go home. Like I like to think of it as like, if you think of sleep is actually training.
Yeah,
that's when you are actually getting stronger, as long as you've provided some sort of stimulus through the day. Like you will actually make progress whilst you sleep. Imagine, like, how fucking crazy is that? And yet the number one thing that people want to do is do more and sleep less.
Yeah.
Oh, and you spoke about, I know we're going to be running short of time, right? You spoke about nutrition and the way that that's changed for you. What are the main things that stand out for you there? And especially with being a female, key differences for anyone that's getting in considerable amounts of training volume, doing CrossFit or like stupid long distance running?
Yeah. Eat more food, more than you think. Like, for me especially, I came from a really like bad background years ago. Before I started CrossFit, I'd tried stupid diets and stuff for no reason other than to.
What's the worst diet you tried? What's the most stupid diet you've tried? Go on.
I don't even think you want to know this.
I do. Go.
Okay. So completely vegan, 30 bananas a day. Yeah. So if you want to look up a cult, you can Google 30 bananas a day. Because that's what it was. I didn't realize this at the time because I thought this was the answer to all my problems, but it was the way that helped me come full circle and realize that my problems were to do with other things. But literally this diet was during the day, daytime hours being 7 till 3 in the afternoon. You can eat whatever you want as long as it's raw fruit, 30 bananas being a good option. And then in the evening, you should eat vegetables because, of course, just eating bananas all day, something wrong with you. But yeah, to vary your vitamins and mineral intake. But obviously,
eating fruit after 3 o'clock will kill you as well, won't it? So,
but it was such a weird diet. I mean, I'm glad I did it for a short amount of time because I probably would have died. Really,
it's probably worth me clarifying that eating fruit after 3 o'clock won't actually kill anybody, which is good because I ate this apple at about 20 past 3. So,
yeah,
not killed over yet.
that is no way. I do not want to state, that eating fruit is bad. Fruit is great. We love fruit. Bananas are fine. They're not going to kill you. However, women need fat and we also need protein, of course. But no matter what other people tell you, consuming that much fruit on a ratio of 95% fruit to 5% whatever else and being vegan is not good for the female body. So I know we might get some hate here from people who are vegan, but
bring it on. Bring it on. I'm here. I'm here all the time. I'm here all the time. If you're vegan, you want an argument, come on, bring it on. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Like, I went through a really, really dark time with that diet and other stuff that was going on. And I wouldn't say I developed an eating disorder, but I developed a disordered way of eating and looking at food. And then luckily, when I joined this gym here, I was kind of going through a transitional period of getting rid of all that crap in my head of what I thought I should be eating and rewriting that with what was actually nutritionally sound advice. So you always need to consume more food than you think in general. But if your watch tells you you've burned 2,000 calories, that's not true. So we need to kind of take a bit from both schools of thought here. This is going to overestimate what you need to eat, whereas most people would underestimate what they need to eat after a CrossFit class, which is typically high intensity interval style training with heavy weights mixed in there as well. So I began to slowly learn that you need to consume food. Women are more likely to catabolize their own muscle mass and even bone mass after a workout if they don't consume calories within 30 minutes after strenuous exercise. So let's say as a female, like I am now, wanting to put on more muscle mass, if I were to do my workout of my back squat session mixed in with all the other stuff, leave it a bit, not eat, and then go do my run, I would feel awful because my body is then starting to break down the muscle mass even more to recycle it, to try and rebuild that muscle mass. It's very annoying to think that we need to think about it a little bit more than guys do, but unfortunately we do. We're talking 20 to 40 grams of protein and carbs after, let's say, an hour to an hour and a half's worth of strenuous training. I do not mean Pilates or yoga. That doesn't count. You can do that as much as you want. Just eat normally within that. But running does have a massive impact on your body. So people who run long distances and don't consume any nutrition, as a female, you're more likely to be breaking down your own body even more for the longer you go. So if you're not taking on any nutrition, you might feel okay at the time, but your body is going to be under so much stress, inflammation. Dare I mention the dangerous amount of muscle breakdown. If your body can't cope with it, you're going to end up with rhabdo, which is it's one of those things that we worry about a lot in CrossFit. But it's really important. For me as well, I don't know if other women feel like this, but if I don't eat every 3 to 4 hours, I know that sounds a bit insane, but if I don't eat regularly, I start to get headaches and feel really nauseous. And that's like an indicator for me that my body is needing fuel to help recover and I'm not giving it to it. So that's something that I try and keep on top of. And breakfast being really important. I do struggle with that sometimes, which I think every woman does. We're more likely to have cortisol issues as well. So if you don't get enough sleep and you wake up and you don't feel hungry, that is a massive warning sign. It's telling you that your cortisol levels are too high. What normally happens in the morning is your cortisol levels rise to wake you up. Then the hormone that makes you hungry, ghrelin, should be released. Once you then eat, your cortisol levels come back down. Everything's fine. We're feeling good. Now, if your cortisol levels remain high, you don't eat food within the first hour of waking. They stay high. And you know what that does? It increases the likelihood of visceral fat or abdominal fat in women. So if we're trying to lose weight, most women would probably say, I'm going to skip a meal today. I'm going to skip breakfast. That's normally the one that people skip. You're more likely to gain fat mass. And of course, your muscle mass is also not being maintained if you don't eat enough food. So you might hear it a lot. Studies show that if women consume more or the right amount of calories, you actually end up losing weight and getting that body composition that you're looking for. Now, just to throw in a little caveat here, with all my running training, I am not the kind of person that wants to get as lean as, I can only really think of Kipchoge right now, even though he's a man. He's super lean, right? He's made for running long distances fast. That was not my intention with my training at all. I want to keep as much muscle mass as possible whilst being able to do the long runs and also be able to do my strength training. So for me, I definitely fall into a category of someone who is a larger person running, which to me is utterly ridiculous because I'm not a large person. But when you look at a lot of people who just do running, obviously, in order to get faster, you need to lose weight. I don't know if that's why women tend to go more to running as an activity, to be honest, which saddens me.
I think this will be a whole different topic, I think, in terms of why women participate. I think a lot of the times the gyms can be quite intimidating, dirty, grotty places. Obviously, mixing with
filled with men who make grunting noises.
Yeah, and not just regular men either. Like you're talking like testosterone fueled Neanderthals that are literally prowling around, like grunting, snarling, spitting, and snotting everywhere. Like it's not an inviting place, is it? So
Yeah.
I think getting the right training environment is a big thing. And I know there's a lot of boutique gyms that are popping up that are like ladies only training gyms, which are, mint if you can get access to one of those. But I think running is one of those where it's the barrier to entry is so low. You can go wherever you want. All you need is a pair of running shoes. You don't need a lifetime commitment to a shitty health club that's not going to look after you. Ultimately, if you're not working with a trainer, you can go and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I think in turn, and especially with women, like there's less judgment when it comes to running because you've not got people looking around all the time, and you don't get the paranoia of, oh my God, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Are the clothes I'm wearing right? Is my hair right today? Like, why is that person looking at me? Like, I think I get it as well, because I've been in this situation where I've gone into a gym and I walk in there and I go, right, I've never been in there before. What's the standard protocol? Like, where do I put my bag? Can I put it here? Is there anyone using this bench? Is that band always there? Is there anyone using it? Like, and you don't want to be necessarily just walking in, treading on anyone's toes and causing a fuss. So I think it can be another thing. Going to a gym can be another thing which just adds to already high accumulated stress levels. And I think what you touched on before in terms of those daily habits, the routine, the sleep cycle, hormone levels and balances with that, I think that fits into the picture of, if you look at your total energy expenditure through the day and then that threshold of calories required to then put on mass or gain fat versus burn fat, I think ultimately it shifts that bar there, meaning that the calories in, calories out balance changes, and the overall picture looks worse. Like, you can actually make your body far more efficient, far better, and actually lose weight, lose body fat by actually eating meals, which is fucking weird, right? Because you actually consume more food, but ultimately, like, the overall metabolism and the way that your body's functioning is going to be a much better picture, and it's all going to turn out wonderfully well. So you just kind of have to live a good lifestyle, eat the right foods, and do it in the right balance.
Exactly. Training, the different kinds of training as well, strength training as well as cardiovascular, all help your body become much more efficient, especially if you're putting on muscle mass as well. That just naturally helps you with calorie burning. You don't even have to think about it. The more muscle mass you have, the more calories you naturally burn at rest. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. If you're eating good quality nutrition as well, it doesn't always have to be clean, because I know in trying to eat enough food to maintain yourself with all this physical activity, sometimes you might need to throw a bit of more of a junk food product in there in order to get the number of calories that's needed. So, but you shouldn't worry, because you then know that your body is much more efficient at processing those kind of junk foods if you regularly train and treat yourself basically as an athlete. Again, it's something that took me a while to learn, and it is like a daily thing that I still have to focus on, making sure that I get enough food, and balance of fruit and veg, definitely important, but you also need to eat carbohydrates and fats to maintain all your metabolic systems in the body. And of course, women and our hormones that often get spoken about as if it is a separate entity in the body. My hormones don't like me today. My hormones.
No, remember, men and women all have the same hormones. We all have the same cycle. We're all equal. We are the same thing. There's no physiological difference between men and women, which is why men are allowed to play women's games.
That was such a segue.
Do you know what we've actually managed to do quite well? We've gone like nearly the entire hour without mentioning it. Anyway, I don't. Obviously, everyone knows that I'm taking the piss, right? There's massive differences between men and women. I've actually got. I know you've got to go soon. I've got 3 quick questions for you. So on the topic of food, I suppose this is kind of a 2-in-1.
Yeah.
What was the best cheat meal that you ate? I say cheat meal, best recovery meal that you ate through your training process, and after the event, after the fact, what was the post-run meal? What did you do?
Okay.
That's number 1.
Okay. Right. So, best cheat meal throughout like big training days and stuff. I love Chinese food. Okay. I know you don't often hear that a lot from personal trainers and stuff like that, but um, there's just something about some dim sum and then rice and lemon chicken is my
Something about dim
ultimate
sum.
favorite. Man, I could just eat dim sum till it's coming out my ears. I swear, I love it. But lemon chicken, because you've got your chicken, you got your protein, right? It's covered in this sweet lemon sauce. You got your carbs. There we go. We're done. But I have to thank my boyfriend immensely for my post ultra marathon meal. So the lap did offer a meal, but honestly, I was in the middle of crying, laughing. I was starving. So I didn't have the meal that they offered. So I don't know what that was. But basically, we got back to the hotel and Dom had asked the hotel to prepare some food for me for when I finished. So we had ribeye steak with pulled pork spring rolls, and it was a giant Scotch egg cut in half with like this lovely barbecue sauce thing on it. So lots of meat. It was basically the best meal ever. Tasted so good after running that far, I tell you.
I can't. Do you know what? After I did my ultra, I think I'd pretty much like just got a bag of like snacks, like little protein bars and Lucozade Sports and stuff like that. Maybe a chocolate protein shake, that kind of stuff. Like I didn't really have anything big, but I think after mine on the way back, we stopped at a service station, and I think it might have been like a Leon's. So it was like, and I remember, I think I got something like two big meals for myself, and I think I just remember eating lots. And then because I'd only done one try, I'd done like the worst preparation you could ever want to do, because it was like a last minute sign up thing. It was like a client said, "Oh, there's a space available. Do you want to do it?" Like, yeah, all right then. I did like one training run of like 7 miles, and that was it. That was 2 weeks before the event, and I think I ended up getting a cold. I was ill for about a week afterwards, so that was not good preparation. Right, question number 2 out of the 3. Were there any kind of spiritual moments through the run or afterwards?
Well, there were quite a few, had a few little epiphanies along the way, I guess, because you get to a point and it's like every little notch of what you're doing is like, I've made it to this point. So there was a lot of actual self-realization on that run. Like loads of people were telling me that it would be really, really tough. Nobody told me I wouldn't be able to do it. That was great. But in my head, there was lots of me going, you might not be able to do this today. But I had a conversation with myself several times on the run that was like, no, you're actually doing really well. What hurts? Tell me what hurts. It was like my brain had me up against the wall going, come on, you little bitch. There's nothing wrong with you. Keep on going. And then there's the other version of me going, oh, but I might injure myself. But no, that was just great to have that with myself. But there was one weird thing that I did experience. So I did the whole run without any music because I forgot my headphones, didn't have my phone on, just me and nature for quite a good chunk of it. I kept hearing someone behind me. So I'd look, there's no one there. But I kept hearing little mumblings of voices or shuffling. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's just me. There's no sheep, there's no cows. So that was really weird. I know people do talk about hallucinating properly when they do these really long runs. Let's say if you do them in a hot environment as well, you're more likely to hallucinate. But yeah, I think I was just going a bit loopy at that point, but made it through the other side. So
I was going to say, I think I remember when I was doing mine, I was in the hotel the night before, and I was just walking along the corridor back to my room. like you say, you just had that little voice in your head, that little thought where it goes, what if you can't do it tomorrow? And
Yeah.
my response was that as soon as that thought came in, it was literally like, if there was another little character in my head, it's laughing and then it's saying, fuck off, come on. And it's almost like you say, come, you can't be serious, right? And that thought was then parked. And I remember like 10 minutes before the race, the person I'm doing it with, we've got someone that's going doing the checkpoints with us. I was going to give him all my stuff. That was just going to go in the van and I would just grab a drink, grab a bar and run on from there, like carrying nothing. Yeah. Then he turned around and was like, oh, I've got to go back to the hotel. I need a light. I feel like trash. Like I need a sleep. So I was like, okay, sound. So I thought I better take everything with me. So I carried my bag, which must have been like 10 kilos, 20 kilometers. And I remember we got to the 20K checkpoint and I took it off and I just took the camelback out and then just ran from there. And I remember that next 10K, I felt like lightning. I was so fucking quick. Like I felt so bouncy. It was unreal. I was being the best 20 to 30K. In fact, it's the only 20 to 30K split I've ever done in my entire life, but it would have been the quickest. It will be the quickest. My final question for you before I let you go. Advice. What would be your advice if you could give one bit of advice for young girls or women in sport?
Well, it's such a massive thing to talk about. I think one of the main things would be you as your young self, listen to what you want to do, because there will be a lot of people out there. I'm not saying it's all men, because it does actually happen a lot within the female community as well. Will always have a comment about what you're doing and they'll assume you're doing it for X reason or whatever. If you've really found the joy in a sport, then you do that purely for the love of that sport. Do not listen to somebody if they tell you that you don't look like you're a runner or a weightlifter or whatever. There will be a lot of people that tell you that you look wrong or that you need to think about your looks, the way your body's put together in order to be able to do X and Y. It's absolute bollocks. I wish I'd have started and then stuck with sports and training a lot earlier than I did. And I gave up a lot of times on things because I listened too much to what other people thought of me. Now that I'm grown, you don't listen to so much of that anymore, but you still get a lot of comments. You do. People will comment on, oh, well, you should be smiling whilst you do this bench press. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I would look like a psychopath if I was smiling whilst I'm doing a bench press. Yeah, like, just leave me alone. I'm just here to train. I'm here to enjoy what I'm doing for what it is. So stick with that. And please eat enough food, protein, carbohydrates. Please do not get me started on the hill of women refusing to eat carbohydrates because they think they're going to explode. Nutrition is really important. And again, I've had it within my own circle of female friends, and my mother included, that they have very skewed views of nutrition. Go and do your own research and just trust in what your body is telling you. Because luckily, we do get a lot of signs if we're not eating right, cycle-wise. So yeah, they'd be my main bits of advice.
Sound advice as well. And just for everyone listening, you can go and find Jamie on Instagram, Jim Jam Lifts.
Yeah.
Jim, Jim, Jam, Jam, Lifts, all one word. Go find her on Instagram. That's where she'll be. Massive thank you for coming on and doing this today. I have still got a list, like over 1.5 pages worth of stuff that I want to ask you, but we'll have to leave that for another day.
We'll have to do another one. Yeah, definitely.
I know. But thanks for taking your time. We didn't even get into any of the right-wing fascist stuff either today.
I know. I've been preparing all my notes for that as well, mate. So,
shit.
Well, thank you for having me.
Till another time. No, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you doing it. And I'll speak to you. Well, I'll speak to you later. All right.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. That concludes today's episode number 72 of the Lenko Show with Jamie Clough. Hopefully you've taken loads of useful training tips and advice from that episode, from preparation for long events, just maybe even a different outlook on your overall view and your perspective of your training week and how you're actually going to deplete your resources through the week, and cater that towards a larger, more overarching goal. So like in Jamie's case, it made more sense to actually kind of chip away at resources, push yourself and test yourself mentally and physically towards the back end of the training week when the legs are tired, to kind of simulate that final phase, maybe even that final 20K, 25K of an excessively long run, especially if it's a distance or something that you're aiming to do that you haven't done before. You have to find a way to push that extra mile, push that extra bit of distance. So really interesting, really insightful way of going about it. And obviously loads of little hidden tips in there with regards to sport training, especially if you're a female, the way that you need to account for yourself and your nutrition. You have got to eat in accordance with what your body needs. You need to fuel yourself for the activities that you're doing. That means you've got to get your calorie balance right. And you also need to look after yourself from the perspective of sleep and recovery. If you do that, then your nutrition falls into line and all the dominoes start to line up and it becomes routine. It becomes easy. It can be very, very tough at first, but once you get that nailed, you're onto a whole different track and a whole new way of living. So, and it will be guaranteed 100% worth it. So if you are stuck for anything training wise, nutrition wise, and you need a bit of help, you need a bit of expert guidance to push you along the way, you can always get in touch with myself and Chris here at the Lenko Show. If you want to check us on Instagram, Alex_Lenkowski_performance, and same for Chris_Lenkowski_performance. We'll be there to answer any questions you've got, provide you with any useful insights and little tidbits that you like. And if you need access or you want access to an online training program, whether it's for general health, lifestyle, longevity, or indeed our specialization, which is sports and performance, then make sure you check us out. Drop us a message, speak to us, get in contact, and we will most certainly help you out with that and push you to achieve your goals. Until next time, that's it from me. Lenko, out.